Welcome back, everyone. It's DINA KALMETA here with CWW7 News. And for today's broadcast, we have a lot to talk about concerning the United States, Russia, Syria, Israel, Iran, as well as China and Taiwan. But I'd first like to talk about Russia. In fact, I'd like to take you to this report from Yahoo News. However, this is being reported across several different sources, and they are reporting that President Putin has predicted global chaos if the West hits Syria again. Russian President Putin warned on Sunday that further Western attacks on Syria would bring chaos to world affairs, just as Washington prepared to increase pressure on Russia with new economic sanctions. In a telephone conversation with his Iranian counterpart, both the leaders agreed that Western strikes had damaged the chances of achieving a political resolution in the 7-year Syria conflict. President Putin in particular stressed that if such actions committed in violation of the UN Charter continue, then it will inevitably lead to chaos in international relations. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley stated that the United States would announce new economic sanctions aimed at companies that were dealing with equipment related to the Syrian president. Responding to Haley's remarks about the plans for new sanctions, Deputy Head of Defense Committee of Russia's Upper House of Parliament said Moscow was ready for the penalties. They are hard for us, but will do more damage to the USA and Europe. In Damascus, Syria's deputy foreign minister met inspectors from the global chemical weapons watchdog OPCW for about 3 hours in the presence of Russian officers and a senior Syrian security official. The inspectors were due to attempt to visit the Duma site. However, Moscow condemned the Western states for refusing to wait for the OPCW's findings before attacking. Meanwhile, Russian warships and military vehicles have been spotted on their way to Syria. The Project 117 Alligator-class landing ship was spotted in Turkey on Sunday. The vessel was on its way to the Russian naval base at Tartus on the North Syrian coast. Before the strike, there were reports of a military buildup around Syria by U.S., French, and UK forces. The movement of the Russian vessels come after a statement by the Russian ambassador stating, "Again, we are threatened. We warned that such actions will not be left without consequences." It goes on further to report that the Alligator landing ship was seen with tanks, trucks, ambulances, and an IED radar. It goes on further to report that Russia warned before the airstrike that it would respond, and some people are fearing a confrontation between NATO and Russia. As Russia builds up their military near Syria, Express News as well as many other sources are reporting that almost 4,000 U.S. servicemen began major war games in Jordan just hours after the strike in Syria. The focus of the exercise, which is taking place 300 miles from the Syrian border, is to ensure that American and Jordanian troops can collectively work together and operate in a coalition-type environment. A variety of possible scenarios will be acted out during the exercise, including long-range bomber missions and security operations mock-ups. A fictitious ground force attack by a mock adversary will also take place throughout the region during the event, between April 15th and April 26th. It goes on further to report that U.S. Army General John Mott said the current exercise will provide the basic skills to achieve professionalism for the ground forces in the field of joint operational readiness during the pre-implementation stage. The general also stated this is a golden opportunity to tackle specific threats to regional security at the operational level that improve our ability to think and act faster than our strongest opponents. General Mott also confirmed that a mobile laboratory team will respond to a staged chemical weapons attack. The United States military has declared that they are on the balls of their feet in preparation for any retaliation from Russia. Lieutenant General Kenneth McKenzie stated, "We're ready for it. We're postured, both in the region and globally. We are on the balls of our feet, and we're ready for anything." Meanwhile, RT News is reporting that an Israeli Air Force veteran has stated that even though the continued escalation of tensions over the situation in Syria is unlikely to spiral into a full-scale world war, it can still lead to a major regional conflict and danger of miscalculation. The conflict in Syria remains a source of a major international security concern as global powers are at play there, and some regional actors, such as Israel, who are also pursuing their own aims in the situation. The conflict in Syria remains a source of a major international security concern as global powers are at play. With so many interests intertwined, the possibility of a miscalculation in the policy of one of the players is growing, which in turn could make the situation quickly deteriorate into a regional war. At the same time, the Air Force veteran called the fears of a potentially looming global conflict exaggerated, adding that the possibility of a world war over Syria is unlikely. The Israeli Air Force veteran also justified his country's violation of its neighbor's sovereignty, and particularly strikes against facilities in Syria by saying that Israel has no other choice. The only reason to enter the Syrian airspace would be to take specific targets threatening us. With all due respect, he said, at the end of the day, we have sometimes to go and do what needs to be done because there is an imminent threat. At that time, we have to act and diplomacy must be put aside. It may or may not spiral into a world war, and hopefully it will not. But eventually it will happen, according to scriptures Isaiah 17:1, as well as Ezekiel 38. And we're watching the beginning stages of that right now concerning Russia, Syria, Iran, and Israel. And speaking of which, I have another report here from Arutz Sheva, and they are reporting that Israel has drawn a red line with Russia. Israel has sent a clear message to Russia that the sale of the advanced S-300 missile defense system to the Syrian regime will cross a red line. A political source who revealed the message in a conversation with Arutz Sheva stated that the message was conveyed following a Russian Defense Ministry announcement that Moscow was reconsidering the sale of arms to the Syrians following the joint attack on Syria. The S-300 system could be a very significant upgrade to Syria's air defense, which is now based mainly on purchases from the former Soviet Union, since no country has ever agreed to sell an advanced system of that kind to the Assad regime before. It is not clear whether the Israeli message will affect the thinking of Russian President Putin and his administration. In 2016, Russia renewed the sale of the weapon systems to Iran. The deal was signed in 2007 but was frozen following the international sanctions imposed on the Iranians. However, Iran has expressed interest in purchasing the S-400 missile defense system. The more advanced system has not yet been sold to any international actor and remains solely in the hands of the Russian military. In addition, it is also being reported that Israel will not accept limitations on its actions in Syria from Russia or any other country, says the defense minister. We will maintain total freedom of action. We will not accept any limitation when it comes to the defense of our security interests. But we do not want to provoke the Russians. We have an open line of communication at the level of senior officers. The Russians understand us. And the fact is, for years we have managed to avoid friction with them in Syria. Lieberman again accused Israel's main enemy, Iran, of seeking to entrench itself militarily in neighboring Syria and threaten his country. He said, "We will not tolerate a significant Iranian military force in Syria in the form of military ports and airports or the deployment of sophisticated weaponry." It goes on further to report that Israel has sought to avoid direct involvement in Syria's civil war, but acknowledges carrying out dozens of airstrikes there to stop what it says are advanced arms deliveries to Lebanese Shiite group Hezbollah, another of its enemies. The Jerusalem Post is also reporting that an Iranian Army Ground Forces commander has warned that Israel can no longer threaten the Islamic Republic. As the tensions continue to rise along Israel's northern border, the commander has stated that Iran's armed forces are much more powerful than before, and that the date has been set for Israel's destruction. Israeli officials have repeatedly voiced concerns over the growing Iranian entrenchment on its borders and the smuggling of sophisticated weaponry to Hezbollah from Iran to Lebanon via Syria, stressing that both are red lines for the Jewish state. Iran's Army Day is marked on April 18th, the same day on which Israel will celebrate its 70th Independence Day. The commander also taunted others in the region by saying that unlike countries such as Saudi Arabia, which imports its arms from the West, the armed forces of Iran were produced locally. The commander's remarks were also echoed by the Iranian defense minister, who said on Sunday that Iran has reached its self-sufficiency in producing, supplying, and exporting weapons made in Iran. Israel is concerned that Iran is not only trying to consolidate its grip in Syria, from which it can have both its proxy militias like Hezbollah, as well as its own troops from the IRGC, to attack Israel. Israel is also concerned that Iran is trying to build advanced weapons factories in Lebanon in order to manufacture more accurate missiles which are GPS guided and could hit targets within a 50-meter radius. It goes on further to report that on Friday, Israel's army announced that an Iranian drone believed to be a copy of a U.S. stealth drone that was downed in Iran in 2011, which infiltrated into Israel's territory in February, was armed with explosives and had been on a sabotage mission without disclosing the target. And last week, Israel also reportedly carried out an airstrike against Syria's T4 airbase, the same base where the drone took off from in February, killing 7 Iranians. A senior IDF official confirmed to the New York Times that Israel was behind the attack, stating that the February incident opened a new period between the Jewish state and the Islamic Republic. This is the first time we saw Iran do something against Israel, not by proxy, he said, adding that the strike on the Iranians at T4 was the first time we attacked live Iranian targets, both facilities and people. As tensions continue to rise in the Middle East, China has been busy as well. In fact, they have scheduled a live fire drill to take place on Wednesday in the Taiwan Strait. And they're saying that it's designed to show that Beijing will not tolerate any moves by separate forces to divide its territory. Here's that report. China's military will hold live fire drill exercises in the Taiwan Strait, putting new focus on raised tensions between the United States and China. News of the live fire drill, which is scheduled for Wednesday, immediately triggered speculation over both the timing and China's aims. Authorities offered no details or explanations, but a number of recent moves by the Trump administration have drawn criticism from China's government. Those include the passage of the Taiwan Travel Act, which encourages high-level government exchanges between Washington and Taiwan. The U.S. recently authorized contractors to build new submarines for Taiwan, and it appointed as a national security advisor John Bolton, who has publicly advocated stationing U.S. troops on Taiwan. On Monday, Taiwan's president told a visiting delegation from the American Enterprise Institute, a Washington-based think tank, that the recent exchanges between Taiwan and the U.S. have enhanced the strategic partnership between U.S. and Taiwan. She also said that the White House allowing U.S. defense contractors to supply the parts and technology Taiwan needs to build submarines would not only help, but strengthen its self-defense capabilities. However, a mainland-based military expert said that the president's comments might serve to provoke Beijing into taking further action, and that Taipei might have been too optimistic and overestimated its ties with the U.S. The naval expert stated that if the Taiwan president believes that the U.S. will protect Taiwan in the event of military action by the mainland, she was playing a dangerous game. Both Taiwan and Washington are close to crossing Beijing's red line, and Wednesday's drill will show them both that the PLA is ready for action at any time. Amazing how thousands of years ago, these events had been prophesied in the Bible concerning Russia, Iran, Israel, Syria, in fact, even the United States, China, and Europe. And just in case there is somebody out there that has never heard of these prophecies before, I'd like to take you to them now. Concerning Damascus, we are on the cusp of Isaiah 17:1, the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. We're also on the cusp of Ezekiel 38:39 concerning the Gog and Magog war, where Russia, Turkey, and Iran will form an alliance with many nations to try and attack Israel. Zechariah chapter 12 verses 2 through 3. Behold, Jerusalem will become a cup of trembling and a burdensome stone unto all the people round about. In addition, Matthew 24:6 and 7, Mark 13:8, and Luke 21:9 through 10, Jesus said before his return we would hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation would rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There would be commotions. We are watching all of that today right before our very eyes. Jesus also said in Luke 21:28, when you begin to see these things come to pass, then look up and lift up your head and know that your redemption draweth nigh. I would definitely say we are beginning to see these things come to pass. But I'd love to hear from all of you, so please do leave your comments in the comments section. Tell me what you think. I would love to hear what's on your mind. Also, come and visit us on Facebook, where we have these stories and many more, as well as our website at www